You wake up disoriented, slumped over the base of an empty cryosleep pod, still damp from cryofluid. The thick dust from the floor clings to your skin, leaving a clean spot on the ground, where a large 05 is painted. Across the room, there's an open door to the hallway and a broken window leading outside. Just as you gather your wits, an unearthly scream erupts from down the hall beyond the doorway. Something is coming. Fast. You drop to a defensive stance as it bursts into the room. The beast stands on its hind legs like a man, but has the appearance of a ragged, predatory dog. The combination of your stance and build must really look imposing, because the dog man actually looks a bit confused when it sees you and hesitates. You both lunge at each other, colliding with great force. The dogman realizes his error too late as you slam it against the door jamb, repeatedly. Its corpse crumpled at your feet, and you let loose with an unbridled roar that echoes down the facility's halls. You decide that it was so awesome that you fish through the console for the security footage of it and take it. You're standing in a cryostasis room, though it looks like you might have been the only survivor. The dust on the ground makes it easy for your trained eye to pick out one set of tracks in particular. They seem to belong to a humanoid dragging something, probably a mantle or cloak. It was here fairly recently, probably in the past 24 hours. It entered through the doorway, walked to your stasis tank, went to the control console, and then left. You'd bet good money that it wasn't the dogman you just faced. You decide to go outside and see if you can figure out where you are. Avoiding the broken glass, you step onto the sill and outside, rustling some plants that have grown wild in the area. It's cool outside and damp. Probably morning. The distant report of a gun catches your attention. You cock your head listening, but it's over as quickly as it started. Obviously, you're not alone out here, though that doesn't necessarily comfort you. You're in the parking lot of Gaiji's cryo facility, but everything looks disused and in disrepair. Plants have pushed their way through the pavement and over the facility. Worst of all, nothing looks familiar. You don't remember this place, or even who you are. Your frustration mounts, but you catch it and put it in check. Might as well take a look around. You found a disused correctional facility. Heavy metal cell doors, bars, and utilitarian furniture are still bolted to the floor. It doesn't take long to see that you aren't alone. One full block of cells is occupied. Guards lounging around, all wearing torn leather. Gangers. Met them before. They're meat market dealers. Deal mostly in slaves, all kinds. Breeders, workers, prostitutes, sometimes the eating kind. Always a big demand for those. Slaves and slavers, nothing new here. Anyone released from the cells is bound to be in poor condition and unable to evade the guards. Shrugging your shoulders, you leave. But not before snagging your foot on a protruding bolt in the floor. Like the other ones, holding down the prison decor. Man, that hurt. As you approach the town, there is no sign of activity. Buildings stand in ruin. Vehicles are overturned and blackened with fire. Explosion marks radiate outward from the walls and pavement. In the distance, strange-looking creatures circle in the sky like monstrous, leathery vultures. The world has drastically changed from what you knew. Some sort of cataclysm has befallen Earth, returning mankind to the Dark Ages, and along with it, your hopes of finding a warm meal and some answers. You decide to look around and scavenge what you can from the ruins. As you make your way to one of the huge structures you saw from a distance, you notice this one is fashioned of stacked, rusted shipping containers and heavily guarded. You see emaciated people in threadbare coats around the structure, but the guards don't seem to pay them any mind. People carrying boxes exit the structure through a doorway on one side, so you decide to use it to enter. When you step inside, you notice some of the people scattered around the place surveying you, but they quickly lose interest and go back to minding their own business. This is a bazaar, it seems. Most of the traders seem to be covered in grease, blood, mud, or all three, and the air is thick with the acrid smell of burned electronics and overcooked barbecue. This is ZZ's trading post. The sketchiest swap meets this side of the Mississippi. Pick up items to purchase them or drop items to sell them. Gathering your things, you exit the structure and set out into the wilderness beyond.
As the source of the distant sounds finally comes into view, you stop in your tracks, unsure whether it's safe to continue. Ahead, you see a titanic warehouse, like one of those distribution centers from before the apocalypse. There is a dull roar of ethanol generators, combined with the occasional rev of unsuppressed exhaust from off-road vehicles. Figures seem to be milling around a low extension on the right, and the occasional ATV arrives or departs without fanfare. You don't think you've been spotted yet, this far out. Though with all the activity, it's hard to tell. You cautiously approach the warehouse, noting a bright sign reading Zom Zoms, a place to eat. The sign hangs over a giant garage door, which is fenced off behind a tarp and barbed wire. Bright lights, welding arcs, and peculiar shadows can be seen in the fenced area, and a din of rowdy chatter echoes from within the building. A semi-trailer attached to one of the loading bays acts as a makeshift gate and pedestrian walkway into the warehouse. Ragged-looking figures line up alongside the trailer, watched over by armed mercenaries. It looks more like a club than anything else, except for that tarp area. Just then, your stomach sinks when you realize there's a truck on the other side, offloading prisoners or slaves of some sort. Biting back panic, you reason that showing fear now might mark you as a target, and try not to break your stride. Mercifully, nobody seems to care. While in line, you feel a flutter of anxiety each time the line advances. With each step, you try to catch a glance of what's through the doorway in the trailer, but you still can't tell. Most of the people in line are ragtag looking, wearing mismatched clothes and stinking of sweat. Some were confused, others were bored. The guards are better groomed by comparison, though you suspect they'd just as soon murder you for your clothes if they weren't being paid. Up a few wooden plank steps, you step inside the semi-trailer, and hollow sounds of a crowd echo down the narrow corridor from the warehouse. To your right is a chipboard and mesh booth where an attendant is collecting fees and weapons and stamping people before they walk down the trailer into the warehouse.
Stock or spectator?
The attendant drones, looking disinterestedly past you.
Never mind.
She exhales, stamping your hand with a symbol and number, and nods to another grisly merc, who checks you for weapons. You receive a chit for your confiscated items and are ushered down the trailer. You hear the man behind you answer,
"Spectator,"
to the attendant before passing into a wall of sound inside the warehouse proper. Inside, it's 1 part super club, 1 part gladiator pit. A wall of sound assaults your ears as you cross the threshold, part human cacophony, part generator exhaust, mostly frenetic industrial music, and the smell of food and smoke. You can't hear it over the noise, but you can feel your stomach rumble at the smell of sweet barbecue. The cavernous warehouse is dominated by a dirt-floored arena with high mesh walls. Spectators ring the pit on 3 sides, the 4th reserved for a large garage door leading outside into the tarp-fenced courtyard. Beyond the door, you catch the flash of welding arcs, where it appears scrapyard robots are being prepped. And opposite the garage door, the thing you really care about right now, a wide booth with grills spewing sweet and spicy smoke into the rafters above. People clamor to get at it and walk away with their prize smeared over hands and lips alike.
Free barbecue! Grab your free skewer now before the next fight. A chance once in a lifetime.
A chance once in a lifetime.
You hear as you get closer to the crowd. It seems handouts are not common here. You wade through dirty patrons, intent on manhandling some ribs or beans and rice, or whatever it is they've got cooking over there. Who knows how long you've been in cryo? How long has it been since you've had a hot meal? Pressing your way through this final wall of hungry patrons, you get an elbow on the counter and desperately try to make eye contact with one of the servers. A few eternal minutes later, one of the apron-clad food slingers glances at you, and you nod like an excited dog. He reaches into a smoker box, withdraws a loaded skewer, and places it in your hand. Sweet, succulent barbecue. Savoring it at first, you start to grow paranoid that it'll be snatched from your hands, and you bear down on it with renewed fervor, huddling with it against your lips as you absently walk away from the grill. This meat, it's like good, fully developed veal. Not young, but not yet beef. Yes, very definitely like that, and not like any other meat you've tasted. In fact, so much so that you think no person with a palate of ordinary, normal sensitiveness could distinguish it from veal. It is mild, good meat with no other sharply defined or highly characteristic taste, such as, for instance, goat, high game, and pork have. The steak is slightly tougher than prime veal, a little stringy, but not too tough or stringy to be agreeably edible. The roast is tender, and in color, texture, and smell as well as taste, strengthens your certainty that of all the meats you habitually know, veal is the one meat to which this meat is accurately comparable. Just then, an announcer pipes up. With that same oscillating voice every strip club DJ seems to have, he starts hyping the crowd.
"Can you count, suckers?"
He shouts. Patrons start yelling back.
"I said, can you count, suckers?"
On cue, a testosterone-fueled wave of shouts comes from the floor.
"Raise those numbers."
He calls with expectation, and everybody raises their fists in unison. The music changes, the lights switch to UV, and numbers appear on all the stamped hands. Your heart starts to race as you realize what's happening. Looking around, everyone has a stamp, but most of them don't look like yours. Everyone has numbers, but it's clear now what the symbols are. Most patrons have silhouettes of vultures next to their numbers. You look down at your hand. Yours is a lamb. The announcer calls a number, a low number. You feel a bit nauseous, but also relieved. You raise your hand, and nearby patrons look suddenly, then quickly lose interest in it. A scream of protest erupts from the far side of the arena. Everyone nearby looks across, where a commotion starts. A man is hoisted into the air, like a crowd surfer at a concert, and propelled to the arena gate. Patrons claw the remainder of his barbecue from his flailing hands, fighting over it like dogs. Guards wrangle the struggling man and toss him onto the dirt floor in the arena as the gate is sealed behind him. The winner is a filthy, weak, and confused-looking human. As he clambers to his feet, a clacking and squeaking sound crescendos from the opposite side of the arena. Cheers start erupting throughout the warehouse as the source of the noise rolls into the arena through the garage door. The bot is little more than a heavy, treaded ring of barbed spikes. A haphazardly hung lead ticker sits atop its mass, flickering the words Morning Star, confirming your suspicions as to its nature. Without pausing, the bot starts closing in on the human. who, to his credit, has given up rattling the gate and is now facing the more immediate danger. He starts circling left, leading the bot to one side of the pit, then dashes right as fast as he can, bypassing the bot. The move buys him a few seconds, as the bot spins in place on its treads, but he ends up in the same situation on the reverse side of the arena. This continues for a few laps, with the human visibly wearing down. Perhaps realizing his error, he switches tactics and leads the robot towards a support column, allowing it to get close before ducking around behind it. The bot starts turning in place, but the tread gets hooked on the pillar, and for a moment, it appears to be stuck. You can sense the tingle of hope in the man as he watches the bot rock to and fro for several seconds. However, the bot's rocking eventually frees it, and it turns to face him again. Crestfallen, the man returns to his original strategy of dodging the robot like a bullfighter, ever more slowly each pass. It doesn't take long for the robot to wear down its already weakened prey, and it scores its first hit, trampling his leg under treads. The man's cry of pain is lost in a wave of cheering from the crowd as the robot backs up. The man hardly has time to limp before it rams him again, this time following through and impaling him against the wall. Drunk with bloodlust, the crowd is now screaming as the robot backs away once more from the stumbling, bleeding man. The bot rams him into the wall one more time and backs away, this time with the human stuck on its spikes. The crowd cries out in ecstasy, which eventually simmers down to a rabble as the arena service personnel remove the entrails. Your mouth agape, you suddenly feel a wave of nausea. You begin looking around, panicked, unsure what to do next. You look around the room anxiously, waiting for something to happen.
Word is, you've got a good medical plan.
The voice startles you, even amidst the shouting crowd, and you turn to find a young man with an old face. He looks to be of Asian descent, with hair like a mop, big aviator glasses, and an improbably white fur coat.
Relax, I don't work here. In fact, I'm gonna try to make sure you don't either. Come on.
He turns and heads toward the garage door. Since that's away from the arena's human-sized gate, you decide to follow. You get the sense he's a patron too, or at least not with the management, as neither guard nor patron seems to pay him much attention.
A little bird told me.
He shouts over the crowd and music.
You might know a thing or two about cryogenics.
He talks over his shoulder as he walks, as if tossing words your way.
I know a guy who's looking for some heavy-duty cooling units. He may be willing to trade for some info on where to score a few.
You arrive at the massive garage door, and the cool air seems tinged with ozone.
His name's the Stoat. Come on, dude, I'll introduce you.
Out in the robot prep yard, mechanics are tending to their creations. Your companion stops alongside a tall robot, reminiscent of a farm combine. You shudder to think what it does to a human with those blades, but then something inside moves. Crawling out of the feeder house behind the blades is a mechanic who looks around and is satisfied and waves another out. The second looks more like one of the patrons than a mechanic, starved and scared. The pair skulk along the fence line and disappear out of sight. Fur coat guy turns back to you with a proud yet devious grin on his face.
The Stoat is pleased to make your acquaintance. Now, about that medical plan.
He suggestively taps his wrist. Unsure whether you want to give up the strap, you self-consciously fidget with it a moment, then read it over once more. Instead, you decide to share the facility address, but keep your name to yourself.
Smart,
he says, tapping the side of his head with his index finger.
You're a smart dude. Tell you what.
He pulls a box out from under a flight case near the Combine bot.
Here.
He opens the box.
Unclaimed lost and found, let's say. As for me, I may have to check into your fancy clinic soon. I think I'm coming down with a little something.
He fakes coughs and clears his throat, grinning. He looks over your shoulder.
Oh, also, you'll probably want these back.
You turn and see a familiar face from the front gate. She drops your checked items in a lockbox. You cast a glance back at the Stoat, and he shrugs.
What? I can't do this alone. Your safest bet is to go along the fence, where they went.
He thumbs over his shoulder, indicating the route the mechanic and patron followed.
Unless you're still hungry?
He laughs, mocking a vomiting motion.
See you around, dude.
He calls over his shoulder, walking back to the warehouse. Stoat's friend waits as you gather your things from the lockbox. Better make sure you empty that locker while you have the chance. Once ready, you head along the fence, back to the relative sanity of the wastelands.